I want to talk today about looking at everything in amazement. Since New Year's, I've started to listen to Dharma talks daily again, revisiting the book of the Dead by Sogyal Rinpoche, and which I find a very interesting book. Also because personally in my life I've from a young age I had lots of experience with death, which I find very precious, and the book is for me very interesting because it's not really about death but about how to live, and how important it is that we live with the awareness that our life is finite, at least in this body, that our time is precious. And on my journey with the teachings, one of the teachers I love to listen to is Jack Kornfield, and I think he has such a kind heart, and I am deeply touched when I listen to him. And there was a little story about a few lines. I think it's a poem from a female writer, Mary Albright, and which ends in "married to amazement." And this struck me so. It struck my heart, a chord in my heart. And lately in my life, I've been, since the cancer 3 years ago, I've noticed that I'm going through a phase that's much more about grief. I'm tending to in my mind go more towards things that I've lost. I think it's also my age. I'm turning 57 soon, and which is great. I've never expected to get this old. And I think it has to do with that. I lost in my relationship, which, I still and think is still getting over. Well, my health has changed enormously because of the impact of the cancer. And anyway, what I want to say is that I've noticed my mind lately to focus much more on, as we would label them, negative things. And also since the cancer, I've had these little bouts of anger or fear that are actually not linked to thoughts. They just come up, and it's like a primordial feeling, and I'm like flushed with it. And during the cancer, I went to therapy because I was aware of the need of looking for support. But still, this it's subsided. It's gotten much less, but it's still there, and I've noticed how it's also partly a habit energy that I inherited from previous generations. Unfortunately, there's a lot of anger and being very strict with yourself in my family. A tendency to be very overly judgmental towards yourself and others, which is it's kind of this rigid, angry, basic feeling, and that I've, until a few years ago, I didn't notice so much in myself, and lately I notice that I've inherited quite a lot of that energy, and it's not easy to look at. It's not easy to see that in myself, because I've always considered myself as a very loving and very easygoing person, but lately I see how judgmental I can also be. towards myself, towards others, and like it goes so fast. It's like just riding my bike through the city and I see something, someone, and before I know it, there's this judgment going through me, and I'm like, oh my God. And sometimes also even words come out before I can, like a few years ago, I used to have that beautiful restraint where I could breathe in and breathe out and be more observant. Nowadays, maybe it's also my chemistry has changed. I'm trying to find excuses now. But yeah, I'm less in control of my feelings. Which is a funny thing because my Dharma name, which Thai gave me, has equanimity in the name, so that's kind of ironic. But nevertheless, and with one of the teachings I've heard lately, I've heard the beautiful story. I think it's from Thai actually, in his book Old Path, White Cloud, which is he tells the story of Buddha in this book. It's how Buddha was very visited by Mara before he got enlightened, and also after he got enlightened. And Mara is seen as this a deity, a god of evil, that is linked to evil. And there's depictions of Buddha, how towards enlightenment he was able to deal with Mara in a much more compassionate way. And hearing this story again really helped me in trying to look, because I knew this, but knowing something in your head and letting it come down here and then in your heart and then being able to actually practice it are two very different things. I find over and over again, and actually hearing this again made me be more able to feel that compassion that towards my Mara, towards the Mara I have to deal with lately. And through this beautiful talk by Jack Kornfield, where he tells us about amazement amongst one of the things, I've decided to look at things in the coming time with amazement. Maybe that will, because before, a few years ago, when I encountered difficult feelings, I would just like breathe in and breathe out and be aware of and look at it with kindness. But at the moment, this doesn't help me. It's also, I think, my personality. I always need change. I'm an artist, and I'm not like some people good at doing the same routine day in, day out. I need slight variations. So and I've started this, and it's beautiful. Yesterday I picked up some beautiful secondhand chairs that I'm gonna renovate, and cycling to the city in the wind, I was just like, I did this exercise, like looking at amazement, like with a bench that in the park, like who created this, who made this bench, and how amazing that there's a bench that I can sit on if I'm tired. How amazing that my little dogs, I have two little dogs, one of 7, one of 5 kilos, can run next to my bike. They have this ability, this intelligence. How amazing that I can share my life with them. And it is not, I mean, I'm not going to tell you all the amazing little things, but what I want to share with you is that it makes a very big difference if I do this for me in how I go outside or also inside. I mean, how I go about life, but my daily life, but especially outside, because since the cancer, I've become very sensitive to. I think I've always been slightly sensitive to too much impressions, but this is why I decided to move away from the city. But as long as I'm still here, it helps me to not get so stressed when I have to be in a busy environment with lots of how do you say, prickles? Lots of input. I don't know the real word. And it just helps me to, rather than see it in a negative, stressful way, to see all the miracles that are around me, that it's amazing in Holland that you see a mother cycling with a kid in the front of the bike and a kid sitting on the back, and and it makes such a change. If I do this, then everything is like I'm opening up. It's like instead of doing this, it's like I'm opening up. I'm opening up to the possibility of, and the love of the universe, the beauty that is there everywhere. I mean, a few years ago, I read quite a few Buddhist literature from people that practice Buddhism in prison, and it was so touching that people that were incarcerated for the very long time, like 20 or more years, and they have like extremely little privacy. They hardly have things that they regard it. I mean, yeah, I don't have to explain to you. These were accounts from people in America, where the prison system, especially for colored people, is very harsh. And I was so touched. And you read this. I've heard and saw and read this from many people who've encountered very challenging things, that even in the most darkest place, if you are able to, you can find beauty. You can find the love of God or the universe, or the connectedness, the feeling of everything's already good. Like the enormous gift I had while I was waking up from my operation in 2000, it was 2019, I think. I had a 9-hour operation, and apparently while I was waking up there was some oxygen, I don't know, it doesn't matter. And I had this experience. I think it probably was a near-death experience. I'm not so interested in what it was. It's more the experience, that the gift that I got, which was, there was light. There was light, love. Many beings that have already walked on, crossed over, family members, friends, animals, pets and other animals, basically, that were there. And the message was so clear, and it's so difficult to put in words, but I'm trying to share this because it's such a it is, for me, it was such a gift, which wasn't unfamiliar, but I'll tell you that later. And the message was just, everything's already, you are there, you are already, everything is okay. That's not doesn't capture it. Everything is, you already, it didn't say enlightened, it doesn't, you are already there, you are already perfect, but it didn't put it in, it wasn't in these words. I mean, there were no words, obviously. That's just and I've read this also in Sogyal Rinpoche's Book of the Dead, Tibetan Book of the Dead, is that the idea of reincarnation is not so much that we as Christianity believes we have a soul, but there is some form of energy, and I really do believe that as well, that is connected and that will go on, and that it is connected to all other energy of all other beings, or maybe there's one big light where we go to. I don't care. There's things that I don't care so much the factual thing, whether it's like this or like that. For me, feeling that and having gotten that gift reaffirms a few things, and that one is how important it is to spend my life on this earth to get as close to the light as possible and to help other people feel loved, and myself also have compassion, feel love for anything, and put that as much into practice in my daily life as I can, and to learn to open myself more and more to that. The other important thing is I'm already there to relax. It's already okay. It's already, because I have a personality that's, as I said before, part of what I inherited from my family energy makes that I can be very harsh for myself. So it's never enough. I always have to do more. That goes accompanied with the fact that I've never been able to build a career in the regular sense, because I've been ill so many times in my life. I don't have a set profession, which has to do with a lot of insecurity that I always felt about what's my place in this world. And the other gift of this light is the feeling connected, the feeling that all beings, we all have that light in us. Even the most aggressive, the most lost being they have this light in themselves, and that for me is something I've always felt in a way, and it's something very, very important for me to remind myself of, also in a conflict, or in when I deal with people, whether it might be in my thoughts or in whatever form, with people that I have a hard time with, to remind myself they too want to feel loved, and have that inner light in themselves, how covered up that may be by trauma, by delusions of greed or whatever. It doesn't matter, but another very important gift of that experience was the connectedness, the feeling carried, feeling I don't have to do things alone, if I am doing things alone, I am connected. And this is something and this is when it comes to what I said earlier, this experience wasn't unfamiliar to me, is because also when I was a child, when I was a little girl, and I had it tough at home, I would go outside, or maybe it even happened at home, I don't remember, but there's a few times which I do still vaguely remember, is I either went to a church nearby when there was no service and there was no one, or I went for a walk in the enormous park where we lived very close by. And I felt this presence of light surrounding me, by my shoulder, by it, and that it was the same. It was the same feeling, and there was no word communication, but this prevailing warm feeling of light, support, love, being held, being it's I've in Buddhism, in the tradition of in Plum Village, I've always been very touched by Avalokiteshvara, which is the goddess or the deity of compassion. And I love to hear the Plum Village ensemble chant, and when Tai used to do his mudras, I think they're called mudras, with his hands, when he sat there and invited the big bell, it's so touching. And they sing this 3 times, and the first time when they chant Avalokiteshvara, you actually give the compassion to yourself, and then you give it to others, and then to the world. And this energy is you can, or I think in Christianity it would be Mother Mary, and it's this kind of energy that I felt, this non-judgmental, unconditional love and light, without it being, it's as best that I can explain it. And doing this exercise of amazement basically reconnects me with that energy, with that underlying knowledge, wisdom that lies in me, that there is light, there's connectedness, and I hope it will help me also to visit my Mara, to see my encounters with Mara with more amazement, and that way, when I already the little encounters that I had so far since I'm doing this is already, it makes me more open towards the experience, not so involved in the anger, in the or at least if I get involved, to be able to later then step back and see in amazement what has happened, in amazement and with compassion, to see, oh, okay, this is what I did, and also how funny that I did that. This is something that always comes into play when I observe myself, is that I'm just bemused by myself. It's like, oh God, what have I thought now? What have I done now? Or what have I? Because after all, it's just a thought. It's just a feeling. It's something temporary. It's something not to be taken too seriously, because in the grand scheme of things, it's like so unimportant. So. But we do tend to get so tangled up in our emotions and our thoughts that we think that's the world, and that's so funny, because it's like, yeah, right, not. So, and I wish the world could see each other, that we could see each other more in amazement. I thanks to the many beautiful teachers I had and have in my life, I've been able to do this, but I actually wish this on everybody, because it can ease your burden, it can bring more light and joy in your life. Because when many people they only have the negative news, as if you watch the news or you read the newspaper, you get worried, and then what do you do about it? If you are a sensitive person, I've decided already, actually some years ago, I would not read the newspaper anymore, because I was like, and what am I mean, I know since I was 8 years old, when I read a really big article in Stern, which is a German newspaper, a glossy magazine, where there was like the biggest article. I think it was even on the cover. It says our woods are dying. And since I've been in love with nature since I was a small child, I was really shocked by that. I was like 8 years old, so this is almost 50 years ago now. And it really woke me up. And so 50 years later, I've been aware that our environment needs help and we need changing. And reading this over and over again, I've decided, no, this is not helping. What am I doing? I'm just getting more frustrated, angry, feeling helpless. So I've decided quite a while ago to try and look, okay, what can I do instead of absorbing myself with the negativity? What can I do to change, to help as my little grain of sand, to do it differently, so to not contribute to more pollution, more waste, more, the whole Western, if you want to label it. I don't think it's Western anymore, but we're still the richest and the richest part of the world. And I think this is a problem for many people, that we feel overwhelmed. We feel overwhelmed because the climate crisis has become much worse in those 50 years, and now we also have wars. We have many refugees. Unfortunately, it seems like the gap between rich and poor is becoming bigger again. Greed is still, many people still think they can eat money, unfortunately, and that they get happy by buying more and by, this is our illness also of our time. And what I want to say is, I wish that more people could watch in amazement at the beauty of things as well. All at the same time as there's so much negativity going on, there's also lots of beautiful things. And I think lately I see especially the young generation coming up with all these new alternatives and ways of doing it differently. Lots of young people that do not want to buy in anymore into consumerism and careerism and all the outwards way of living. And I wish that was more in the news, but it's not. But I think looking in amazement just helps you soften. It helps you get more in tune with all the goodness that there is, and also have compassion with yourself and your neighbor who's struggling, and maybe then you come up with more ideas to how to feel less helpless, and how to instead shut yourself off from, oh, I can't do anything because it's so bad, to open up for ideas what you can do differently. Even because even it's such a small, if it's just a small thing, every little small thing helps. I remember I started buying in organic shops in the late 80s, around 87 I think, and I was so many people always told me, you're crazy, and how do you know it's organic, and how you know it's not a scam. And now it's 25, I'm not good with numbers, bear with me here, it's about 25 years later I think, and now in Holland organic, even in every supermarket you can find organic food. So what I want to say with this is that yes, it does help. It does help to do it differently, because the more everybody does, the more it will become a trend, and that will become into a revolution. And I had a jump in thought, which was, isn't it amazing that I can sit here in front of this laptop, and I don't know who will later listen to my talk and hopefully touched by this. It's, all the many beings that helped make this, that invented computers and then later made them so small that I can put them on my lap, and that me with my little income can afford one. And that's I'll take a little break and a little breather. And to finish the talk, I want to share with you the beautiful poem by Mary Oliver. It's actually titled, I didn't know this, When Death Comes. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me, and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measlepox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door, full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility, and I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending all the music does towards silence, and each body a line of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride to amazement. I was a bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened, or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Mary Oliver. Isn't that beautiful? At least to me, it captures in the most wonderful way my motivation and keeping up the practice and trying to grow and trying to share my joy of the practice with you in my small little insights. May you be amazed by life.